Okay, hello, and welcome once again to the Ferguson Library Presents Record Your Computer with me, Frank Skornia. I'm the digital librarian for Adult and Information Services at the Ferguson Library, which means I handle a lot of our computer technology class instruction, as well as handle a lot of our digital platforms like our ebooks and databases at the library. So if you have any questions, I will probably be the one answering those. So, welcome tonight. This is the last class in our current online technology class series that we're offering here. We're going to be taking a bit of a break with live classes through November and December, and hopefully we'll be starting up again, maybe with a new format and some new classes in January. I am planning to take a lot of these classes that I have recorded and streamed out to all of you during these past several months. I am hoping to take some of those there and compile and put them together actually in videos that you can easily watch without kind of the live interactions. So look for those through November and December posted here to the Ferguson Library YouTube channel. So welcome tonight. Tonight we're going to be looking at using free online technology to help actually record your computer, doing things like tutorials, lectures, or demonstrations on your computer. I figured this would be a skill as more and more teachers and other people are having to work online and do sort of recordings and show different skills like I'm teaching you here, show you kind of the technology that works to make that happen. So first off, I just want to kind of talk about how classes work here on YouTube. So if you have any questions throughout the course of the class, there are a couple different places that you can ask your questions. One of them is going to be in the YouTube chat. That's going to be either to the right of the video that you're watching, or it will be below the video, depending on how big you have your video set up on there. The other is going to be there is a chat room on the webpage that's right up here above my head, fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes. And so if you don't want to sign into Google or YouTube and you still want to ask questions, you can ask questions in that chat room on that website, and I will see them both. You are seeing things on a little bit of a delay. I actually forgot to change the delay before this started. Can I do it now? I can't change it now. So you are seeing things probably on a 25 to 30 second delay from where I am now. But don't worry, if you do have a question, I will see it and I will answer it when I have a good opportunity to answer it. So go ahead and ask those questions. So in order to kind of follow along with this class, because this is meant to be kind of an interactive follow-along class, I recommend going to the website here above my head, fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes. And when you do, that will bring you to this page here. So this page here has all of our information regarding our online technology classes that we have going on here. We have our schedule here, which unfortunately we are at the end. There is nothing after tonight's class, but we can find links to the earlier classes here, as well as find them here on the Ferguson Library YouTube channel. And when I have the opportunity, I'm going to organize them better into a playlist so it'll be easy to find within the Ferguson Library YouTube videos, because we have a lot of stuff that's going on. So keep following the Ferguson Library YouTube channel, and there'll be a lot of stuff kind of continuing to learn from all of that there. Moving down the page, there are two different things here to pay attention to. On the right is that chat room that I was telling you about. So all you need to do is, if you have a question, just come down here to where this box says type a message here, and you can type your questions here. Sorry, I can't see my keyboard around my microphone. You can type your questions here. I just hit enter and it sends the question, and then I'll see it on my screen and I'll be able to answer your questions. So it's a great, easy way to interact with me as I am going over this class. I'm going to change this over to my view so I can see that. And then over here on the left, we have all of our class materials. So if you've missed one of the past classes and you want to follow along with the YouTube video, you can find all of the materials here for all the different classes that I've taught here on the online. For tonight's class, what we're interested in is all the way down here on the bottom. There's the link here, there's the section here for record your computer. Click on the name of the class and it will open up this little segment here. You will want, in order to follow along, what you will need is you will need to download the OBS Studio software from the website here. It is a free download. It works on Windows and Mac. I think it may work on Linux also too, but it's definitely Windows and Mac, so you can download that there and install it. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to kind of go and install it. Then you'll also want to download the exercise handout here, which is going to download as a PDF. It will be this PDF here, which will have some information about kind of definitions about the software and the things that we're using, and then a variety of different exercises that we're going to work on through tonight, and then how to kind of continue your learning at the end. So you'll want to download that so you're able to follow along. There is this file here, exercise files, which will have some of the files that we'll be using as we're doing the exercises here. And so here, what you want to do is you want to right-click on the link, and you want to choose the option in the right-click menu that says Save Link As. And this will download as a zip file, a .zip file. And what you'll do is every computer is able to like open that up and decompress it so that you're able to get to the files inside. And there should be in that folder. I haven't opened it up yet. Hold on. Let me open up the folder. Where did I put it? It's over here. In there. Oh, and I put it on the wrong screen. There we go. The things are not working. There we go. There we go. In there, there should be just about 3 different files in there. There's not a lot going on with it. But they are things that we'll use through the course of the class as we're working there. And then the final thing here is a link out to the feedback survey, which I will appreciate if you finish at the end. I will talk about that later on here on the stream. So let me go back to here so you can kind of see the link to the online tech classes page. So once again, to follow along, go to fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes. It's right here above my head. And go and download the OBS Studio software from their website, and then download the exercise handout and the files. So as I kind of go over what this class will cover. So what we're going to be looking at in this class here is I did a class earlier in, I think, the end of August about how to do live streaming. So if you wanted to live stream, like what I'm doing here, I'm actually broadcasting from my computer out to YouTube so all of you can see it here. What we're going to look at is we're going to look at the other side of the coin that we can do with OBS, the OBS Studio. OBS stands for Open Broadcasting Software. We're going to look at the other side, which allows you to actually record anything on your computer to your computer, so whatever activities you're doing. And so it's a really great, free, and very powerful tool to be able to set up and do things like tutorials and demonstrations, and to show how to do certain things on the computer. Or if you're doing a lecture, like if you're a teacher and you need to do virtual lectures and you want to kind of record some videos with that there, you can do the recording. All you need is a webcam and a microphone on your computer, and you're able to do recordings like me here sitting and talking to you on there. And then I can go off and show other things on the computer, as I've done so far this evening. So it's a really great tool. It's free. It's open source, which means that there's a lot of development going on. They just did a big update earlier this month that added a lot of cool new features into it. And so it's just a really solid, great piece of software that's a really great lesson to learn. So we're going to look at what OBS is and what it can do. I'm going to quickly go over kind of what equipment. I just mentioned some of the things, but we're going to quickly talk over kind of what equipment you actually need to do recording on your computer. And I just realized I needed to do something here so I can show later on what's going on in the class. So come on, where are you? To extract. The joys of live presentations, isn't it? Are you there? What? Oh, there you are. Oh. Here we go. These are the ones I just did. There we go. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to kind of get that set up, queued up for later on. An idea of kind of doing things live is kind of get things kind of queued up for you there. So I'm going to go over what equipment you need to do recording on your computer using OBS software. It's not a lot, and it's not overly expensive, though some of it's a little bit harder to find nowadays because of everybody having to work from home and using this kind of same technology. Everybody's buying webcams and microphones and headsets. We're gonna go over the OBS, the Open Broadcasting Software Studios interface and terminology. So as I'm speaking and using my terminology through the class, we'll kind of go over kind of what some of that means, and then where to kind of find it, and how and what the software looks like and how it works. And then we're going to look at how to navigate or create and navigate the scenes in OBS. We're going to create a couple different scenes in OBS just as a practice on how to actually do it. And then finally, I'm going to do a little bit of talking about what to do with your recording afterwards. So after you've recorded what you're doing, either you're speaking to your camera and your microphone, or demonstrating something on your computer, and then you have that kind of video file at the end, what are you able to do with it then? So I'm going to kind of do a little bit of talking about that too. So again, if there's any questions, please ask them either in the YouTube chat or in the the chat room on the website, and I'll show that again. So the website here above my head, online-tech-classes, which is this page here, and you can ask them right in this chat room right here, and I will see that. So I want to kind of start off and start talking about the idea of what equipment you need to use the software and to actually do recordings on your computer. A lot of people think you need to have a really complicated, you maybe need to have a more complicated setup than you really need. In the end, if you have a laptop computer, a lot of what you need is already built into that laptop computer. It may not be the best quality technology or equipment built into that computer, but it's already built in. So the first thing we look at there is the idea of when you're actually recording, because if you're actually like recording actions that you're doing on your computer, like doing a demonstration or a tutorial of something, you don't even need a camera in those cases. You could just be a voice, like a voiceover showing what you're doing there. So the important thing when it comes to doing these kind of videos, and especially if you want to narrate or do a voiceover, is you need to have a microphone. And you need to have a microphone. So a lot of notebook computers, laptop computers have microphones built into them. But they're not the greatest, and they can pick up a lot of other extraneous noises. So you can do things like you could get like a separate microphone set up, and there are USB microphones that you can buy, a little bit more expensive, or you could buy like a headset, which has like headphones and then a mic that comes across your face, and those are really good for just recording. Especially if you're recording your voice, because they're like super specialized they're not super specialized, but they're super focused microphones that generally just kind of pick up where your mouth is and how you're speaking on there. If you want to be able to have your face show up like I have here, where you're able to see me and I'm talking to you, or I'm talking to my camera, hopefully through that to you, you'll need to have a camera. And again, a lot of laptop computers have cameras built in, but they're not always the best quality. So there are better cameras, better separate cameras that you can buy out there, and webcams. And the technology has gotten really popular, so they're easy to find. A lot of them are really good quality. I could talk about certain brands, but the best thing is to kind of go out there and read reviews and kind of find what you're looking for to kind of fit what you're trying to do. The other kind of really important thing I usually find, especially if you're doing anything where you have a camera on you, and this is important too. If you've been doing a lot of Zoom meetings, or you're doing, if you want to do the other side of this coin and do live streaming, what's really important also is having proper lighting. So when you set up into a location, so you do want to kind of choose a location where you can kind of set up and record that's going to be quiet, that you're not going to get a lot of outside noises coming in, or if there are noises, you can pause and let it go and then kind of continue. So you don't want to sit by, say, like a refrigerator that's going to be constantly humming. If you have like animals or pets, sometimes they can be kind of create noise. And so when you're doing your recording, you want to try to kind of make it as quiet an environment as possible. You also want to make sure that your lighting is good. If you're going to be doing a camera they're going to be showing, either you're going to be demonstrating something on camera, or you're going to be showing your face, or like a webcam kind of view on there. And so with cameras, there's a variety of different, or with lighting, there's a variety of different things that you can do. You can get ring lights. A ring light is actually a ring of lights that gets set up actually around the lens of a camera. So if I have my phone sitting here, and so what the ring light would do is it would take the lens of my camera, my front camera is right up here, And so what a ring light would do actually is would put a ring of light around there. So the light is actually shining out from that. So when you point it and the lens is showing at you, the light's shining directly on your face. It's usually kind of one of the best ways to kind of set up. My setup here, and one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to show you what my setup here at home while I'm doing this here is to kind of just show you how kind of simple some things can kind of be. So let me actually pull up this photo here. So yeah, so here, and I just took this just tonight, actually, as I was setting up here. So what you can see here is this is actually my setup here. And so here is my microphone. I have an external microphone. I use a desktop computer, so I'm actually using additional equipment built onto my computer here. You can see I have my little dragon. I have a bunch of different dragons kind of perched around my computer. But the important pieces of the equipment to look at is I have my microphone here on a stand. This microphone does come with like a little like desk stand. That for a while when I was using it, it would just sit on my desk and it works really well. So this is an external USB microphone that's then connecting to my computer. I have what's known as a pop filter, which is this this snake with this kind of round mesh here on the front. And what the pop filter does is when I say certain syllables like P for pop, the P sound is what's known as a plosive sound. And so your air kind of puffs out of your mouth at a faster speed than if I just say mother. So if I say popcorn is better than Nutella, Nutella has a lot less kind of pop out of my mouth than popcorn does. And so what this mesh does is it kind of catches those sounds and kind of filters it out a bit so it doesn't hit my microphone. It kind of levels out kind of the speech a little bit more. So if you're really kind of getting to it, they're not expensive and there's no technology involved with it. It's just clamped onto my stand over here and kind of I have it angled down in front of my microphone. So it's between my mouth and my microphone. So a pop filter is kind of a nice little thing that just kind of helps kind of adjust your levels. I have my little webcam right up here. And you can see, so this is actually coming, and this is what I'm seeing too. So when I'm looking here at you, I'm looking at this point right here on the camera. So this is kind of set up there. So you see my camera go there. This is just a speaker. And then the other thing I want to point out is just the lights. And so my lighting here is really just 2 desk lamps. I ended up buying 2 desk lamps that are on kind of adjustable angled kind of stands, similar to actually my microphone stand here, but a little bit more adjustable. And the reason I have 2 lamps going here is that one of them, this one over here on the right side, is basically like my full frame light. This is the full light. This is shining directly on my face. It is kind of bright. It's kind of blinding when I'm sitting there and such, but I've done this enough that I've kind of gotten used to having this light shining in my face all the time. And so you can see if I put my hand over here, it's creating a shadow across my face because I'm blocking that light that's over there. So this one here is shining directly to light up my face. The one over here on the left is kind of pointing down, and what it is what's known as a fill light. And a fill light actually just kind of brightens up the area. And what it does is just kind of fills in kind of the shadows with the light. So for example, if I wanted to, let me actually just demonstrate. If I turn off my fill light, boop, you can kind of see now that the shadows on my face is still lit. You can still see my face pretty well on the video, but there's a very distinct shadow over here. You can actually see a sharper shadow behind me, whereas then the fill light, let me pop it back on, there we go, gets rid of those extra shadows around. So it kind of just fills the area there. And you can see this is set up so it's not pointing directly at me. Rather, it's just kind of pushing down to fill out. I could actually, like, one of the kind of the upgrades I could do to these lights is I could get like a diffusion kind of thing on there, which will just kind of soften the light a bit more than it is. The nice thing about these lights that I have set up is they're just basic desk lamps. They both have, this one's on a base. You can kind of see the base down here a little bit. The other one's clamped, so it's actually a clamp. So it allows me to clamp it anywhere on my desk behind. So the nice thing about them is that I can adjust them how I need to. They were really inexpensive. And then I just have LED bulbs in it. And the nice thing about LED bulbs is there's no heat. So I have them shining on my face, but I'm not any warmer than I normally am. So it's a really kind of, there are kind of more expensive, more specialized lights out there for recording. But this was kind of a really inexpensive alternative that I have found. I've been using this here for like 2 to 3 years at this point now, and it works really, really well. The next picture I wanted to show you is this is from another angle here. So you can see here's my microphone kind of pointed in there. There's my pop filter. Here's my chair. I have set up behind me. I have this green screen kind of set up behind me, which is why you can you don't see the background behind me. So this is just another type of just another thing to think of, that if you are going to be sharing your face. Actually, is that what I do have? I just realized I had a thread on the, there's a thread on my green screen right up there. I just fixed that off there. Again, the joys of doing things live is I abruptly interrupt myself to pull off a thread. But what it does is it basically allows me to have a transparent background so that you're not seeing my background, that people can walk behind me without kind of being in the shot. So it allows me, because I'm kind of in an open shared space here, and so it allows me to kind of like close that into it's a kind of more private space. So that's just kind of the equipment, the basics of the equipment that you need for working with kind of recording with OBS Studios is a microphone. This is kind of the basic. You just need to have a microphone that you can record yourself. The better microphone that you can get, the better quality audio recording you're going to get from it. If you want to do anything where you're seeing where you're showing your face and kind of walking through and showing the tutorials like I do here, you will need to have a camera. Both of those things can be built into a lot of laptop computers. They're not the greatest, and if you want better results, you can go and buy additional equipment on there from varying prices. Like, I mean, webcams aim from about $50 to like $300, depending on what you're doing with that there. The one I'm using here usually comes in around $80 to $90, and I love it. It's been fantastic. The microphone I'm using comes in around $100. There are less expensive ones, but I've just done an investment in this technology, and it all depends on how much you want to spend in doing that. There are more expensive microphones. There are different microphones. There's more equipment I could get if I really wanted to specialize more, but I don't. And then the other thing that I find is important is that if you are doing anything with a camera, lighting is important. Even if you're not using the camera to show yourself, but to say demonstrate something that you're doing. So if you're doing a recording showing whether you're sewing anything, or you're doing crafts or something, and you want to have a camera kind of pointed and doing that, or you're trying to show, let's say, like a science experiment, and you have the camera pointing and showing the experiment there and such, you want to make sure that whatever the camera's pointing at is well lit. And usually the thing to kind of look at is think about doing more than one light, because if you only have one light shining on things, it starts to throw harsher shadows. So by having a couple different lights, you're able to kind of soften those shadows and have a more general glow over the area that you're recording. So that's the equipment. Let me know if there's any questions in the chat about that there. And now we are going to go in and we're going to start taking a look at OBS itself. Now, I will warn right now, let me open this up here. Yep. I will warn right now, I have had issues with OBS because I have 2 copies of it open right now. Sometimes the copy that I'm showing to you will just close abruptly, and so I just have to open it up again. But that may happen several times through tonight. So I'm going to go here, and what I do is I have OBS Studio downloaded here. This is actually set up similar to what how I'm actually showing you. You can see my start screen over here. And so let me just kind of walk through some of the different interfaces that we have here. So right up here on the top, we have the preview area. This is where you're able to kind of see the scene that you're working at, and what's currently being shown, what's currently being recorded or broadcast through OBS. And so this is actually the reason why I keep looking up actually over to the side over here, such as because I have this screen up there, and so I'm just keeping an eye on kind of what my screen looks like. If I'm looking up this way, I'm seeing the chat and keeping an eye on the stream information. But yeah, so this is kind of your preview screen. This is kind of where a lot of the action, where you're able to set up your scenes and kind of organize things. And we'll look at kind of setting up scenes in a bit. Down below, you have kind of your tools and kind of your monitors and kind of things that you're using to kind of pull things together. So over here on the left, we have the scenes section, or the scene selection box. Now in OBS, what they call scenes is that the view of the content being recorded or broadcasted. and they're made up of one or more sources. And I'll talk about sources in just a second. And so you can change between different scenes by clicking on like the different boxes here, or by the different items in here. And I'm not actually. Let me actually change to. Nope, not that. Yeah, kind of. Okay, we get kind of the infinity look on here and such. But I'm just changing to one where, okay, so I don't have any other scenes created. We'll create more scenes, and I'll show you how you can change between them throughout the class there. The next thing over on the right is what they call the sources. So the sources here are each of the different pieces that you're going to have. In fact, actually, I'm going to just create a blank scene. Okay, so we have a blank scene here. So we don't have the distracting infinity thing going on up here. So over here we have the sources. And so the sources are each of the different pieces that make up a scene. And so an easy way to think about it is if you've ever been to a play, and you're sitting there and you're looking up at the stage, and they have a backdrop set up behind the at the very back of the stage, and then they have some buildings and some fake walls, and then they have like some tables with some props on it and some chairs, and then you have your actors on the stage, and then finally say you have the curtains that close in front of the stage. All of those together make up the scene that you're seeing there while you're sitting at the page. And that's the same thing that happens here. So what happens is that it's an easy way to think about it. You have things like your backdrops, and then you have like your structural elements. So like the fake walls that kind of make up the room that you're looking at. And then you have like pieces of information that show up on the screen. And so those are like your pieces of furniture. And so there's the bookcase and the table with the vase on it that the actors. And then you have the actors. So you have the actors who are there speaking and talking and presenting themselves on the screen. That's like me here in the bottom corner. And then there's also and then there's the curtains that go up front, so you're able to kind of hide what's ever going on if you want to change the scene in the background. And so those are kind of the different ways to kind of think about as you're building your scenes here in OBS. You're thinking about what you need to think about. You need to think about ahead on how you're going to use that scene. What pieces, what props, or what pieces of scenery do you need to bring in to show the people who are watching the video that you're creating? And you think about it in layers. There's the background, and it then kind of moves forward to the front about kind of, and you're stacking things on top of it. You can have a bunch of different pieces, and there really isn't a limit to how many different sources. And we're going to look at the variety of different sources that we're going to have. It's going to be the exercises that we're going to work through. Moving over further on the interface over here on the right, we have our audio mixer. And so what this is giving information about the audio levels. And you can get audio from a variety of different places, whether you're getting audio from the microphone. So as I'm speaking, I'm actually watching my microphone meter kind of catch me as I'm speaking here. But then there's things like desktop audio or music that was playing. So if you came in at the beginning, before I actually started things, I had background music playing. That's playing on my computer, but I had it being sent out to YouTube so that you're able to watch that there. And so you can add those kind of audio things into your recordings as well too. And then finally over here we have the different controls. And so over here on the controls we have things like being able to start streaming or recording. So if you are using OBS to recording, this is the magic button that you click and it starts recording the scene that you've set up here. There's things like the settings, and we're going to do it. Actually, let's take a quick look at kind of the settings here. Let me see. Do I want? Yeah, I'll take a quick show you kind of the settings can be a little bit complicated. Sometimes OBS Studio now, when you download it, is usually set up. In fact, actually, when you install it now for the first time, it will ask you, are you going to use it for streaming, live streaming, or are you going to use it for recording? And it will kind of set itself up best to work for whatever answer that you want to do on there. So if you're following along and you want to use it for recording, choose that recording option, and it will kind of do some of the best setup on there and such. So the general settings here is exactly what it is. It's the general settings. It allows you to do confirmation dialogues, alignment snapping. This is when things kind of like click or move into places around on the setup. And we'll see that as we move sources around. And a variety of different things, like how does the software behave in your computer here. Streaming, since we're not looking at streaming tonight, we're not going to really look at this information, but this is where you put in the information about streaming out to the different broadcast platforms. output has, and we're gonna be kind of talking about the output here as we when we get to later on in kind of what we're doing here. So we'll come back to this here. But so this is just the settings. I mean, things like your audio setup here, your video setup. How is your video going to be kind of set up on here? And again, this is stuff that it will walk you through the first time that you install the software. And it's usually kind of good to go along with what they're asking about when you do the setup. Unless you're really familiar or confident about knowing what you're doing in OBS here. So I think that covers a lot of the main pieces. Down here at the bottom right, actually here, so right underneath where my head is a little status bar, and I just covered up with my taskbar. And so what it'll do is it'll tell you like when you're live and how long you've been recording, and then just some information about like how much strain it's putting on your computer and your processor down here as well too. So those are just kind of things to kind of keep an eye on as you're going through and you're doing your recording. If you're in most cases, you don't actually ever, this never really peaks out unless something's really going wrong with your computer. But this does give you things like how long you've been recording or how long you've been live. If you're broadcasting out there. So that's just kind of our quick tour of OBS. And so now what we're going to do is let's start working into if there's any questions, please let me know. But let's start working in and looking at kind of our different exercises that are set up. And so the exercises are available on the for any latecomers are on the online tech classes page, which is let me just go back to here so you can see the address. This address up here, fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes, takes you to this page. And then there's the exercise handout right down here. So you come down, click on record your computer, it'll open up this box. Click on exercise handout, and that will open up our PDF here. And so we're going to start here looking at the exercises here. So the first thing that we want to do when we're working in OBS for our recording purposes is we want to create what they call a scene collection. So I've talked about the scenes. So the scenes are all the different kind of ways that you're showing your screen or what you're showing in your recording. And they're made up of different sources. You can collect all the scenes together. So if you're using OBS for different purposes, you can make scenes for those specific purposes. So, for example, if you want to do live streaming, you may have a different setup and different scenes than if you're recording. And you might pull in different information if you're streaming or recording. So you can make different scene collections for that there. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the top of the we're going to go to the top toolbar, or the menu bar up here. And I actually should probably just kind of quickly talk profiles. Profiles are the settings. You can change your settings depending on the use that you're doing with OBS. So, for example, I have it set up for HD streaming because I'm doing high definition streaming. I'm sending you high definition video on here. So those are the profiles. But if I have a different setup, like if I could actually set up a profile for recording that doesn't have any stream information, and it might have different settings. Like I might have even higher quality video for my recording than I do for streaming because I don't have to worry about sending it out over the internet. So those are the profiles are kind of the inner working settings. The scene collection is kind of the outgoing face of what you're sending. So we're going to come up here to scene collection, and I'm just going to choose new because I'm going to make a new scene collection. I'm going to demonstrate creating some new scenes for you tonight. And so we're going to name this here Ferguson Library Class because these are scenes for our Ferguson Library class. And I'm going to hit OK. And now you'll see right up here at the very top on the title bar up here, it tells me which profile I'm using, HD streaming. Over here, it tells me scenes that I'm in Ferguson Library class. It's really easy to change between different scenes by just dropping down to the scene collection and choosing the scenes that I want to do. So like I've created a bunch of scenes for when I'm teaching these classes here, but right now we're going to Ferguson Library class. And when it starts, it gives you one scene over here and it's empty. There's no sources in it. It's just a black box that's available right up here. So what I'm going to do is scene is not a very descriptive name. And I tend to be somebody that likes to have kind of descriptive names to be able to kind of pick them out of the list a lot easier. Because I could have scene, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, but that doesn't mean anything to me as a person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on scene over here, and on my right click menu I have an option here that says rename. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm just going to type in live. Actually, I'm just going to type in recording. The exercise says live, but that's because I didn't change that from the live streaming one there. So we're going to put in recording. I'm going to enter. So this is my recording scene. This is my main recording scene. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Yeah, actually, we'll just call it recording. Yeah, we're going to call it recording. So this is my main recording. So if I'm doing a recording on my computer, this is the main scene that I'm going to use for that there. We're going to do another scene later on for like a specialized purpose, but I'll show that there. So now we have to start creating the scene here. So now that we have our recording scene, we need to start adding sources to it. And so that's the sources here. And so you can see down at the bottom of the box, there's a plus sign, which is add a source. There's the minus sign, which is remove a source. And my mouse is itch. There's properties, which right now, since I don't have a source selected, I can't get to the properties. And then I can move up the different sources, and I'll show you what that means, kind of moving up or down those sources. It's actually the layers. So if you remember my metaphor that I was using before about the play and the stage setup on there and such, where you have the backdrop and then you kind of move down stage and kind of building up the scene as you come forward, we can do that same thing here. We have our backdrop, the flat, the back, the black that's here and such. We put something against that there and such, and then we build things up on top of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the plus sign. I keep opening up my taskbar at the bottom. Hit the plus sign, and you can see here is the list of all the different scenes that I can add in. And there's a wide variety here. A lot of these here are probably going to look a little confusing right now. But the more time that you spend with OBS, the more time some of these here, and some of these here you won't use. Other ones I will use a lot. So right now, because we're looking at the visual side of things, we want to look at these capture, the ones that are called capture. Actually, first thing that we want to do actually is that we want to put a background on here. Right now, this is just black. It's boring. It's not exactly kind of what we want to have behind everything here on the on there. It's just black. We want to have something that's a little bit more dynamic, so that if they're not seeing like our display that we're doing on there, they're seeing something more interesting behind there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click plus, and I'm actually going to choose color source because I want to change the color from black to a different color back there. I'm going to click on color source, and now what happens is I get this create select source button. Which gives me two options. I can either create a new source, where here I can give it a name. And what we're going to do is we're going to call this recording background. Now, if I have created any other color sources before, like in any of my other scenes, they'll list here. And I can actually, instead of having to recreate them every time I want to use them, I can use the same source that I created for another scene. And so this makes things a little bit more streamlined and kind of easy to use. Right now, because I don't have any other color sources, we have to create a new one. So that's why we have create new selected up here, and then I'm going to enter in the name of the source. And again, just like naming the scenes is useful for you to figure out what is what on there, naming the sources is also important, because I could have 4 or 5 different color sources on here. And if I don't name them individually, I'd have to pick through all of them if I wanted to make changes or updates. So I'm going to name this recording background, and I'm going to hit OK. And so now I'm able to choose the color. So now I have my properties for the color source, my recording background, and you can see kind of the different settings that I have for it. I have the color, which right now is kind of this kind of like offish white, which is actually kind of nice instead of it being like a simple bright white. You can actually see the difference between the white up here. Like the title bar up here is a much brighter white than this is. And this being not bright white is very great, is nice, because it doesn't mean that it's actually like blinding you with white light on there. And so what we can do is, but we can also change the color. So we're going to come over here. We can actually select color. And then the other two settings here are the size. So the size of the source. Since my canvas, or like the size of the scene that I have here, is 1920 pixels wide and 1080 pixels high, it kind of defaults to that there. But if I wanted to make, say, like half my screen be one color and half my screen be another color, I could say put this in half, which is 960. Yeah, there we go. And so you can now see I can do half and half, and I can add another color source that will be a different color over there. So this here just fits the whole size. Oh, no, not 1080. 1920. There we go. But let's actually select our color. So we can also, so I select color here. And there's a bunch of, this is kind of one of your standard color pickers. If you're familiar with doing anything in any photo editors or like things like Microsoft Paint or anything else where you can kind of choose colors in Windows, this is kind of a familiar kind of view that you'll see there. So there's things like there are preset colors that will come built into like whatever software that you're using. You can do, if you have a specific color that you know that you want to use, there are ways to kind of look up information about that color. So do you have the RGB or the red, green, blue values? You can enter the specific values into there. Or if you have what's known as the hex code. So the hex code is the common way of doing colors on the internet, on the World Wide Web. And if you if you find a color on the World Wide Web, you can find out what the hex code for that color is, and you can type that into here. So you can really kind of customize. And there's things like is the darkness or brightness over here. You can adjust like this is kind of how dark or bright it is. You can actually click and choose a specific color along here. And you can also then save colors. If you've done a color that you really like, you can save it and it'll add it to the custom colors here. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to do a pre-existing color, and I'm just going to choose, which should I choose? Let's choose this kind of mauve here. I kind of like this here. We're going to choose this. We're not going to change any of the settings, but I'm just choosing one of the preset colors here. I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see now it's made my background this color here. So instead of the black that we had there before, we have the color here. And then I'm going to click OK to kind of confirm my changes. The black background is still there. If I shrink this down, you can kind of see that it's still back there. And this was also another important thing to kind of demonstrate here in OBS is that you can, once I have my source created, I can then resize it and move it around wherever I want to in my scene. So I can make this so it fits the whole thing, or I can fit it just part of it if I want to. I can put it in the middle. I can put it wherever I really want to on there. And you can see that when we were looking at the settings, there was that snap to. You can see as I get close to the edge, it kind of snaps into place. But we want this to be the full background because we want this here to be the background that if nobody's seeing anything, they're just going to see this nice mauve kind of background there. So now the next thing we're going to do is that we want to put in, I'm going to put in a frame around here. So the idea of kind of doing recordings or streaming in OBS is that you can kind of put in like overlay information. An overlay is kind of just like I'm trying to think how to describe what like the overlay is. It's just it's like decorations going around. So if we go back to our stage metaphor, the overlay is like the furniture or like the walls of the house kind of being put into place. And what it does is it allows you to maybe have information to put things like logos. So if you're recording things for your company, you can put your logo into place there. You can put text into there. And it kind of just helps define a place where all that kind of information goes. If you're watching this video here, you can kind of see I have a bit of overlay. I have my camera, me, over here, kind of showing up on the background, the display that you're seeing on there. Over on the other side of the screen, I have the Ferguson library logo kind of showing up and such. So I've added a little bit of the structural elements. What we're going to do in this case is we're going to put a border around this here, and we're going to have whatever we're recording in the middle of that border there. So the border that we're going to use is an image that let's see, where is it? That I made for us to use, and it's in the recording demo files. It's just this kind of blue frame that's going around here. And this was just something that I actually threw this together in PowerPoint and then saved it as an image. So it was I find PowerPoint is really good for making like overlay kind of pieces because you have a lot of freedom of kind of arranging, and you get kind of guides to help guide things. You can add in pictures, you can do shapes, you can do a lot of different things inside. You can do text if you want to inside that overlay, and then you can save the slide as an image, which you can then easily pull into OBS here. So now what we have to do is we have our background here. So now we need to add another source that's going to add our frame to the view that we have here. So I'm going to click the plus sign to add another source. And we're going to actually do an image because the slide or the frame is saved as an image. It's saved as a JPEG file. So I'm going to click image. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this here as border overlay. And once again, if I had other images that I've used as sources, they would show up over here. But right now it doesn't. So I'm going to hit OK. And now what happens is I now get the properties for my border overlay source. Right up here, this is where the preview to kind of see what it'll look like. Down here, we have where we're able to choose the image file that we're using as the source. So I'm going to click Browse, which will open up my my standard Windows File Explorer navigator here. And I'm going to go to Desktop, and I'm going to go to OBS Recording, and there's my image that I want to choose right there. So I'm going to hit Open. And you can now see my preview here shows the blue box kind of around there. There isn't really a lot of other settings that I can do, so I'm just going to click OK. Now you'll notice that when this comes in, it is smaller than my whole scene kind of going around. So what I want to do is I want to resize this here so that it actually goes around the border of the whole thing. And I could just do that there by just clicking and dragging this down until it fits into space. And now you can see I now have my purple background back here, and then I have this nice border kind of going around the edge. And so my plan is, when I'm using this here for my recording, is that my recording, what I'm going to be recording and showing to my viewers is going to be inside this border, which now gives me all this space around here that I can put other information. I can put things like the library's logo if I'm doing this as a recording for the library. I can put text. So if I want to put what the title of the video that I'm making is, I can put that up there so it's always visible. In fact, let's go in and let's, so now what we're going to do is now we want to, we're going to, instead of text right now, we're going to actually put in our display capture inside here. So we're going to put in what we want to be recording through this video. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to add another source, add source. And this time, so now this is where we want to look at the different capture sources. So up here at the top, we have two different audio capture sources. These are for the audio. So it's what's coming into the computer and what's going out to the computer that you're then going to be recording. We'll come to these later on. And then there's different things that you can kind of capture. So you can do display capture, which will capture anything that's on your screen. And that's what I'm using for my live stream here. I'm showing everything that is on my main monitor is what you're seeing on your screen there. So if you actually get to see my background, you get to see my taskbar. If it comes up, you get to see that there. So it's everything that's showing up on this display. Then there's game capture, which is if it's usually designed to capture like full screen applications and games. It doesn't, sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on what you're recording. This might be kind of interesting to use. Moving down, we also have window capture. We're going to be looking at this a little bit later. This is going to be our second scene. We're going to actually look at window captures for our second scene. And then there's also this video capture device. And what that is that's, and you can see by the icon here, it's a camera. That's the camera. So if you wanted to put your face cam on there and such, you have a camera plugged in, you would find that in the video capture device. But for the purpose of this class here, what we're going to do is we're going to put in a display capture. We're going to capture my main display and put this in here. So I'm going to click display capture. And we are going to call it, actually, we're just going to leave it as display capture. We're keeping things simple because that's a good description of what it is. You tend to just have one display capture because most people just have one screen that they're going to be showing on there. I happen to have multiple screens, and I could do multiple display captures. Right now, we're just going to do one, and we're going to call it display capture. So I'm going to hit OK. And now I have my properties here. And so here I'm able to choose which display I want to do because I have multiple displays. It's actually only seeing 2. It should be seeing 3, but it's only seeing 2. I can also grab my other display if I wanted to, but we're going to grab this one here. I'm going to get this funky infinity view on here. You can see capture cursor means that it's going to show the cursor in there. If I don't do that there, you can see as I move the cursor around, it's no longer showing up in the infinity preview. If you're doing a lecture or a tutorial or a demonstration and you're showing something on your computer, it is useful to turn on that capture cursor so they can kind of see, you're able to use it to point at things and demonstrate, so they can see where you're clicking on things. So I'm going to hit OK. There isn't any other kind of settings I can do. So I'm going to hit OK. And you notice now that my display capture here, this infinity is going on forever. It's kind of fun to play with. It's a little hypnotic. It's filling up my whole scene here. So we're no longer seeing my background. We're no longer seeing the frame that I did. So what I need to do is I need to resize this here so that it will fit into the box that I created here. So we're going to do that there. And I'm going to just resize you to fit in the box. There we go. So now you can see, now I have my blue, and I'm just going to just quickly hide this just so, okay, actually we want to see it. So now you can see, now we have our, and it just crashed on me. Remember I was telling you it was going to do that for me as I was going through. So let me just reopen it up again. The nice thing about working in OBS, it's launch anyway, is that it automatically saves as you're working. So hopefully I should be, yep. So I come back to here and I go to screen recording and nope, not screen recording, Ferguson library class. There we go. Let me make this big again so you're seeing everything. It saves as you go along. So when something like this, your work crashes, it doesn't act, and it didn't save everything. So I have to resize this here to make it fit back into my box. But it does. It doesn't save, well, it saves everything, or saves most things. This isn't quite exactly fitting, but that's okay. We're getting a little bit of purple on either side, but that's why we have the purple back there instead of the black. So yeah. So now you can see, now we have our display kind of going in. And now, and so now I'm easily able to show you whatever I'm doing on the computer. And if I hit start recording right now, it's going to record whatever I'm doing on the computer right now. And so we have our recording. So, I mean, at the very heart of it, if you wanted to use OBS to record, you would just need to really use that display capture. You wouldn't need any other sources. If you want to build something more complex, you can build other sources. Now, one of the things I want to show is if I take this here, and I'm going to actually move, where is it? What am I moving? I want you. I'm going to move you over to the side. You notice if I move this over to the side and down a bit, you notice that my display here, my display capture is covering up the border that I did in the background. And then both of them are covering up my purple background. And so this is where the layering comes in in OBS. So the sources here, you notice that the order that my sources are in, at the very top is my display capture. Think of this here as a stack. So if you have, say, like a stack of pancakes or a stack of paper sitting on there and such, the bottom page, recording background, is at the very back. So it's like if I took this stack of paper here and I turned it up this way, the one that's on the bottom, here is now at the back of the stack. So we're kind of like looking at the stack from the top, like an eagle-eye view of the stack on the top looking down. So the bottom one here is the recording background, which is our purple back there. And then moving up to the top is the border overlay, this blue, which is now covering up a little bit or parts of the recording background, that purple back there. And then on top of the border overlay is the display capture. So now that's why my display capture, if I move it over the border, covers up part of the borders. Now watch what happens if I take the border overlay and I click the move up option here. If I move this up, now the border overlay is on top of my stack, and now you can see it's cutting off part of the display capture in there. So you're able to actually kind of layer things, and you can do the layering in a way that you can actually even hide things behind the layers, or what you can do, like there's different, depending on what you want to record and what you want to show. I'm actually going to move you back down again, and I have to make sure I'm clicking the right thing, and we're going to move you into place here again. So if I didn't want people to see like this, say this bottom part of the screen here, like if I wanted this to be visible and I didn't want to see it, I can say something like, okay, I'm going to add in another color source. And you can see, okay, here's a good example. I'm adding another color source. Here's my existing color source that I used before. If I wanted to, I can choose that same color source, but we're going to add another one. We're just going to do this here as a blocking overlay, just to kind of demonstrate what this here can do. And I am going to make it green. Let's do a nice bright green. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shrink the, you know what I need to do is I need to figure out if I can, why won't it, oh, you know what I need to do? I think it's, is it Alt? Yeah, there we go. I can hold down the Alt key. And so what I can do is I can cover this section here up. Come on. Oh, there we go. There we go. Oh, actually, let's just cover up the video part. Oh, wait a second. Boop. Nope. Alt. There we go. There we go. So now I'm just covering up this section. Oop. Is it not Alt? Is it Control for this? Oops. Nope. Is it Shift? Oh, there we go. Okay. So now what happens is like, okay, so now I'm not showing the tools on here, but I can easily hide or show it. So now it's visible. It's not visible. And so if I was doing a recording and I abruptly wanted to hide part of my screen, I could have set up like a blocking like overlay or something, and then I can just show it and block that section and do what I need to do. So now I can go in, I can do some settings down here that you can't see. And then I can hide this again, and then you're able to see that again. So you can use that layering to your advantage to show things, hide things, cover things up. Now you'll notice that as I've been doing things on here, that I've been accidentally sometimes grabbing the wrong item. Like I've been accidentally grabbing the border overlay and moving this when I didn't mean to. One of the great things to use that once you get things in place, if you notice down here in the sources, there's the eyeballs here, and the eyeballs are seeing whether or not the source is visible. So you can see it by clicking them. I can either make it visible or not visible. I can hide my frame around there. I can hide my background. I can make whatever is visible or invisible. And so I do that thing. I do that, for example, like actually on certain things when I'm streaming or using OBS, is that I can hide my camera, or I can hide different things. Like if the Ferguson library logo that's down in the bottom corner is in the way, I can easily just kind of hide it. In fact, I did that last night when I was doing the video editing class, because it was blocking a part of something I wanted to show. So I can easily hide the Ferguson library logo, and then when I want to, I can kind of bring it back. So you can use the eyeballs here to hide or show different sources in your scene. And then to the right of that here is these little locks. And what they do is they lock things into place. So if I lock the background and say I lock the border overlay, now that I have the border overlay, I can't move the border overlay any longer because it's locked into place. So it allows you to put something into place, and then you can keep it there so you don't accidentally move it around. If you've taken a lot of time to kind of get it exactly where you want it to be, you don't accidentally click it and drag it and move it. I can lock my display capture so then it's not moving around, and I can do the block overlay down here so I don't accidentally move that kind of thing. And then I'm going to hide my blocking overlay. So those are different ways that you can use to kind of build the scene that you want to show for your recording. So the final thing I want to just show you in this scene here is I want to show you a couple different ways that we can put text onto the screen for your recording purposes. So I was mentioning before, for example, like if you're doing a recording and you want to put in, say, your company's name or the title of what you're recording on there, we're going to put a title across the top up here, and then we're going to put in some like other text down below on something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back down, and text is another source. So remember, any piece that you're putting onto your scene is a different source, and you can use a variety of different sources to kind of build what you need to do. So what I'm going to do is down here, you notice that when I click on the plus sign to get my sources list here and such, there is a text GDI plus list here, and the GDI is just a Windows. I think this will show up differently in Mac. It'll show up differently in Linux. It's just a Windows encoding thing for how it handles and displays text. Don't worry about exactly what it's saying. The important part is that it's text that we want. So I'm going to click text. And so once again, I get my option here that says create new. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a top title. So we're going to put a title across the top of our scene right up here. So I'm going to call it top title because, again, descriptive names are useful. I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to get my properties. So if you notice the path, we click the plus sign here to get to choose the scene that we want to create. We then get an option to either create a new scene and we can give it a name, or we can use an existing source that's done there. And then it opens up the properties for the one that we created there. And so in here, up here, once again, like everything we've seen so far, OBS is a preview little window of whatever text that we have. We don't have any text entered right now. Down here, you get to choose the font that you want to use. And I'm just trying to see, I don't think I changed the font. But if I click on select font, we got our typical Windows like font kind of selection. So any font that you have installed on your computer, you can use. And then down here, there's a text box that we can use, and we can type in the text that we want to do. So we're going to call this here Ferguson Library Demonstration. There we go. So that's you can see it showing up here in my preview. It's also showing up here, and it's really, really big. We'll take care of that in a second. Scrolling down over here, there are a variety of different things. There is, they have text transform, so I can make everything uppercase if I want to. I can make everything lowercase if I want to. I can make everything start case, which just capitalizes the first letters. I'm just going to do none, so it matches the capitalization that I put in. I can make it vertical. I can make it horizontal. Do not change your channel. And then down here, we have things like the colors. So if I don't want the white, I can go and select color. We get our familiar color selection box here. And so I can go in and it's blue. So let's go, let's go with the yellow. Why not? Let's make it kind of, yeah, that looks good against the blue. So I'm going to make that yellow there. Opacity means how transparent it is. So you can see I can actually change the transparency of it so that you can kind of see what's behind it better. Since this is just going to go across our overlay on the top, I'm going to keep it at 100% opacity. A good example of how the opacity is working again is if you look at the, it's over there, across the screen from me, the Ferguson library logo in the bottom corner of the screen, I have that set at a lower opacity, so you're able to see mostly through it, but it still shows up. So that's what opacity allows you to change on there. You can do background colors, alignment. If we want to center it, we can center it. We could make it left aligned, right aligned. You have all those different, if you're familiar with working with text in Microsoft Word, a lot of the stuff here kind of makes sense on there. A lot of times you're just putting in the text. We can change the font. Actually, let's choose something. Let's choose my favorite Times New Roman. I'm a classic Times New Roman person. So there we go. So now we have kind of a little serif looking font on there, and it looks a little different. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit OK, boop, and we can see up here it's going across the top where I want to do, but it's way too big. So what I need to do is I need to resize this to fit within my screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to right click on it. You can see that it's selected because it has the red border around it. The display capture doesn't have it. The border doesn't have it. But when I click on here, I get the red border, which tells me that this is what I'm actively working with. A key thing in OBS. So I'm going to right click on it. And there's a lot of stuff in the right click options here. A lot of them you don't really have to worry about unless you're really trying to get complicated doing some kind of specialized stuff. But an important one here to pay attention to is this transform. Transform is basically the phrase that it uses for kind of changes, and it changes a different way. So you can see we can kind of rotate into different directions. We can flip it so we can make it like mirror imaged if we want to. But what we want to do here is we want to look at the fit to screen, stretch to screen. So if it was too small, we can do stretch to screen, and it will automatically enlarge it to fit the size of the screen that we have. In this case, because it's too big, we want to actually fit to screen. So I'm going to click fit to screen, and you can see now it's now made itself, it's actually taller. It's actually made itself the same size as the whole screen. So now what I can do is I can just shrink this bar up to here, and then just get this here so that it matches the size of my fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide the display capture to make this a little clearer about where things are. There we go. And so now you can see now it's sized so it just fits nicely on this top bar along my overlay. And because I like where it is, I'm going to lock it so it stays in place. And so now I have the text visible up here. And it's locked into place. So now if I go show my display here, you can it'll show up in the display, but now we have a title of what we're showing on there. So it's a way to add text. You can add kind of whatever text that you want to have on there. So for example, if I wanted to, I mean, when I had like this view on the screen here and such, I have text down there. This text actually is not created in OBS. This was created in the overlay that I created for the use for the streaming here, but I did put the text information down there, kind of showing who I am and my position on there. And so I could have that here. Like I could have that say above my head if I wanted to, over here if I wanted to in OBS. It's just a distraction though for me. But it all depends on what information you want to share, what information you want to show. Think about that as you're planning your recording that you want to do. Planning is always important for these kind of things. Now there is a second way of adding text to the screen. And what it does is it allows you to add text that you can actually then update off screen, and it will update information on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, I'm going to add in another text source, text, and we're going to call this, what am I going to call it? We're going to call it update text, because this is text that's going to be update. And this may or may not be useful for recording. It depends on kind of what you're doing. If you're doing a recording where you want to put information, say you're going to be putting, like you're doing something and you want to say do like a checklist or kind of put the points of what you're working with, or what you're talking about on there, you could use this. And then what happens is that you can, because this all works in a text editor. So what you can do is you can have your recording going, you're talking, and then you can stop the recording or pause the recording. You can then go update the text file. It will update what shows up on the screen, and then you can start the recording again. And now there's that update that shows up on there. So now you've moved on to the next list on your item there. So there's different ways that you can kind of use this technology for your recording. It allows you to really be creative. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this update text, and I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to get, just like before, I have my properties for my text here. We're going to go back to my Times New Roman font, because we're going to keep all my fonts consistent on here. And then you notice instead of typing something into the text box down here like I've done before, I'm going to click this read from file box. And what this is doing is this is telling OBS that the text that I want to have show up on the screen lives in another file on my computer. And the file that we're going to use, if I go to Browse, and we're going to go to Desktop, and I'm going to go to my demo files, is this sample text file that is in the demo files that you downloaded from the online-tech-classes website. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to click Open. So now what happens is now pulling, in fact, actually, what I'm going to do is let me open up that file so you can kind of see what it looks like. Where are you going to open up? You're going to open up there. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down here. Minimize this. So this is the text file, and so this is my update text file. Save. And so this is just all it is. I have this opened up in a text reader. You can use Notepad. I'm using a program called Notepad++, but you can use Notepad. You can use WordPad. Whatever you use to edit .txt files is what you can use for this year. It doesn't matter. You want it to stay simple because you don't want to use something like Word for this here, because Word has a lot of extra things that it does with the text. This here is just your basic, straightforward text file. There isn't any extra encoding or anything. And so I just have a line here that says, say, update text file. I will change that in a second. But you can see in here, there's that text, update text file that shows up in my text file that I have here. And so now what I'm going to do is, let's go do the same yellow that I have for the other text, because we're going to make our text consistent. And yeah, okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I want to put this down on the bottom down here, and we're going to resize. And so resizing, you can use there's 8 handles around if you've done anything in Microsoft PowerPoint, or you've worked with images in Word, you know how these handles actually work. You click on it, the ones on the sides and the top and bottom will change the width or the height. The ones in the corners will do both width and height together. Now OBS, if you notice, if I do the side here, is it does the height as well as the width. If I do the height, it will change the width also. So it tries to keep the aspect ratio. You can force it to ignore the aspect ratio by holding down the Shift key while you drag it. And so by holding down the Shift key, I can drag these specific sides to the size that I want to do. So what I'm going to do now actually is I'm going to, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to fit this down here, and I want to put this kind of into the middle. And then we're going to, okay, so let's make this, there we go. We're going to make this about the size there. We're going to put it kind of right in the middle. Unfortunately, there isn't any way to kind of click it into the middle. There isn't those guidelines or anything like such. So I'm just going to estimate kind of the best place for the middle here. And so now down here, I have my text that's showing up here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock this in place. So it's kind of locked into place there. And now what I can do is I can then at any point while I'm recording is I have my text file now opened up in another view so you can't see it. And I'm going to update what's in there. So I am updating the text where you cannot see it. And then I'm going to save the file. And as I do that there, you can see OBS automatically updates. It doesn't actually keep it in the right. So we're going to actually unlock that there and move this so it fits it all onto here. What I can do actually is I can, if I go into properties, I can center, if I center this, center. And then what I can do is I can actually then resize this so this goes all the way to the edges there. So I'm updating this text where you cannot see it. And so you can see now is that it makes this text updatable by just changing it. In fact, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do it where you can see it. Now I am updating this where you can see it. And then I'm just going to save this. And then as soon as it saves it, it then updates it. So now I'm updating this where you can see it. So so by using let me go back in and show you the properties on this, properties. So by using this read from file box on here and then choosing the file, I can then make all my text changes in that text file. And then they'll show up on my recording here on my source. So those are the two different ways to kind of add text. So that is adding our visual sources. We've done a very basic scene here. We have a background layer that we've put in. We have a border that we put around there. We captured our display, so our screen that you're seeing, my main screen here, we're capturing that and showing that, and it just crashed again. So let me reopen it again. Sorry about this happening. This is just a quirk that OBS does not like to be opened twice. Okay, so let me scene collection Ferguson library class, and we'll pull it back down to here. There we go. Now we're back into business again. So throughout this whole time, I've been focusing on our visuals in our scene. But when you're doing a recording, audio is just as important. Actually, audio may be even more important, especially if it's just you want to do something like what I'm doing here, where it's just a voice or a person kind of talking to you. Or if you're doing a demonstration like I'm doing here, and you could make it do a complete, just like a voiceover with everything seen. So like I could do, say, something like hide my cam here and just kind of keep talking to you. You can do a recording like this here where you're demonstrating something showing up on your screen, but they're not seeing you. They're not using the camera. They're not seeing you. So so the audio is an important part when it comes to doing your recordings on there. So what we needed to do is we need to add in the audio fits in as sources as everything else is. OBS treats them just like it treats all the other sources. So we need to add in a couple different sources, and you can specialize the sources that you have for different scenes. So for like one scene, if you want to be able to capture the sounds from your computers, you can sound from your computer, you can put that in there. If you have a scene where you don't want to have a microphone, you don't have to add the microphone to that scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click plus to add in scenes again, and we're going to look at these top two scenes up here. We have the audio input capture, which is any sound coming into your computer, i.e. microphone. And then we're going to look at the audio output capture, which is anything that your computer will play out of the speakers or headphones if you have headphones on. And so that's the sounds that your computer makes. So it's easy to remember that input is you inputting sound into your computer. Output is your computer outputting sound to you. So what we're going to do is we want to have a microphone. So we're going to add audio input. And once again, you can see just like it's done before on all of our other add sources, it gives us the create select source box. We can create new, or if we've had ones that we've used before, we can add existing. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the audio input. We're just going to put in microphone, because again, it's useful to have a descriptive name there so that you know if you put in multiple audio inputs or multiple audio outputs, you're able to pick between one of those there if you want to adjust the settings or work on it there. And I will mention that the audio, it is important to before you do your recording, test and play around with the levels a bit on there and such. Do some testing on what the sounds coming out are, what the sounds coming in are. Do test recordings. You can do a recording. I usually find doing a recording for something like 10 to 15 seconds works really well. It gives me a sense, okay, is what's coming out, is it loud enough? Is my microphone loud enough? Is my microphone too loud? So I'm going to hit OK. And we get the properties for microphone here. And what you can do here is you can choose the device. And so this will be a list of all the different input devices that you have on your computer. My computer, I have a lot of different inputs coming in. Your computer is probably a lot simpler, so you might just have one or two. You might have the built-in microphone to your laptop, and then you might say have like there's a all laptops are going to have kind of like an audio plug on the side. Or the front, depending on how the laptop is designed, where you can plug in like headphones or a headset that has a microphone on it. And then when you plug that in, that will also show up on this list right here as well too. So default is whatever your default microphone is. You can see actually it's choosing my current default because it's actually showing the meter of me speaking live on there. So I'm actually using, in this case, I'm using my Yeti microphone, and I want to be specific for that there. So it doesn't like accidentally default. Like if defaults ever get changed, like it doesn't go to what is here. It'll be specific to the microphone that I'm using, that I want to use. And I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see it's added over here as the microphone, and it's also added a line here to our audio mixer. And so the audio mixer is showing you the full levels that it's capturing from the audio input device. And so this is where it's a good place to test. You can see as I'm speaking, it's hitting up into the high yellow section over here and such. And then there are times where it's gone in and hit the red. So that I've actually peaked the microphone doing that there. I think I was, I don't think you heard that. You may have heard that. If you find that your microphone is picking things up a little too loud, or you're too loud, you can adjust the microphone level by using the bar down here. And so what this does is this sets the max level that it will capture. So you can see if I do this here, it keeps the recording down into this kind of like green area over here instead of always kind of going up into the yellow, despite me not changing my speaking volume. If you find this too soft, you can turn it up and kind of go up into the higher kind of registers or ranges on there too. So this is the place where you want to adjust those and kind of make sure that the sound mix that you're getting in. This is why this is the audio mixer, is because you're mixing the sound. You're mixing the different sounds that are showing up on the video that you're recording. You want to make sure that you're getting the levels that you want. If you're doing a recording where you're showing stuff on the computer, in many cases, you want to make sure that your microphone and your audio input, so your speaking voice in there and such, is louder and clearer than, say, sounds coming from the computer. There are other times where you want to, say, maybe hear the sounds coming from the computer more than you want to hear anybody else coming in, so then you want to up the levels for that at that time. The other thing over here is this end point over here. If I click this, it mutes the microphone on here so that you can see it's no longer picking up my voice on there. And unmute it, so that's useful to be able to do something where you don't want to have the microphone picking up at times. And I mean, I can do that here on my own. Like I can do this. Now you're hearing me again because I unmuted my microphone. So that's just kind of different settings that you're able to do. So if there's a time where all of a sudden you realize you do need to say, maybe answer the phone, or somebody comes in, you can mute the microphone so it doesn't pick up into the recording. Because recordings are asynchronous, usually with that time you have to do another take, so you have to kind of redo it again. So let's add in, we've added in our input sound. We're added in our microphone kind of coming in. I'm just going to mute this so it's not this distracting bar going across. Now we want to also add in, for our recording, we want to add in the sounds coming from the computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I'm going to once again add a source, and we're going to add the output. So remember, the input is you speaking into the computer. The output is your computer speaking out or playing out to you. Audio output capture, and we are going to call this computer audio, because this is the audio from the computer. And this can be different things depending on how you have things set up. Most times computer audio is just whatever your desktop audio coming from is. And the default there, and what you do here is you choose kind of wherever your speakers or your headphones are kind of plugged into. So if I choose like right now, like my speakers are actually, because I have my headphones plugged into my microphone there, I would actually choose this, and it would be the sounds that my computer plays into my headphones here. If I had my speakers going, it would be the sounds coming from the speakers that I would choose in this case here. So you would choose the device, or you could just choose default. Your initial setups, default is kind of a good place to go for that kind of thing too, but you can kind of experiment. And if the default isn't working, you can go in and choose your specific device. So I'm going to hit OK. And now you'll notice that once again, I have a second line here now that now tells me computer audio. So this is now we're able to start mixing the audio that's going on. And so what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to actually just lower the desktop audio here. And I'm going to just actually start music. So you can hear hopefully kind of quietly. Hopefully it's not too loud. Hopefully I'm a lot louder. Let me turn this up just a little bit. But you can see I'm actually playing the background music that I had going at the beginning of the, there we go, background music that I had going at the beginning of the show. And you can see now it's grabbing that sound. Now, if I go and unmute the microphone and start talking, you can see this is hitting up into the red area up here, whereas my microphone is only hitting into like the yellows. So usually what you want to do is you want to kind of drag this down below where your microphone is. I'm going to stop the music so it's less distracting. But so that's what you want to do, is you want to kind of, depending again what you want to focus on with your recording. It might be more important that your voice is being heard, or it might be more important with the background sounds or the sounds that you're trying to play. So if you're trying to show something with like music or sounds or like a video and there's kind of sound playing from the video, you might want that to be more important than what your voice going into the microphone. A lot of times, because you're the one kind of providing the voiceover for what you're recording, you want the microphone to be a bit louder than that there. So that is, so we have now built our scene. We've put in a background, we've captured our display here, and we've added in our audio. We've put in some text, and we can update the text by using our text editor so that you're not seeing it on the recording. This text up here is fixed. So we've done a lot of different things here in OBS. Now, one thing I just want to kind of show is that we want to actually create another scene, just so I can show you how you can change between different scenes, and also to show you a different capture type. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go here, and just like when I was adding the sources over here, you can see we've kind of built kind of a complex scene on there and such. And just like over here, when I was adding sources, I was clicking the little plus button over here. Over here, I'm going to click plus to add a new scene. And this scene, what we're going to do is we're going to call this, we're going to call it side by side. Side by side. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show two windows side by side on there. So instead of doing the display capture, which captures everything that you're seeing on my screen here, exactly what you're watching on the stream here, I can capture specific windows. So now that I have so now we're back to having just our blank box because there are no sources kind of showing up in here. I'm going to add a source, and we're going to, instead of adding the display capture like I did before or a color source, I'm going to come down here to the bottom and I'm going to add a window capture. And we're going to call this, let's call this web browser, because I'm going to grab my web browser window. So we're going to hit OK. And now what happens is this opens up, I get my properties for web browser, and now down here I can actually choose which window it grabs. So I have a whole bunch of different windows open, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab our online-tech pages here. So I'm going to hit OK. And so now you can see it's now showing the window that I have open. And it's actually right now it's capturing my cursor because my cursor is on top of that there, but it's not, but even though, so this is actually in the background. So if I go and open up my browser here, you can see here's the browser here. So instead of it capturing everything that's showing up on my screen, it's just capturing what's in that window there. So if I scroll up to the top and then go over here, you can see now it's gotten scrolled up to the top there. So this is a great way. And so what I'm going to do is, because this was called side by side, is I'm going to actually take this and we're going to shrink this down to about half the size. I'm not going to do my shift trick where I'm side, because I want to keep the kind of the aspect ratio. I want to keep it so that it's and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, I'm going to click properties, and it doesn't allow me to type in the size actually. Okay. So I was hoping that it would give me like a specific size that I would be able to do so I can make it exactly halfway. But what we're going to do is we're going to make that about halfway there so that you're able to see the web page on there and such. And then what I'm going to do is right next to it, I'm going to add in another window capture. And this one here we're going to do as PDF because we're going to grab the PDF. We're going to grab, where's Adobe Reader? Do you not see Adobe Reader? Why not? You're there. Oh. I was hoping that would be a nice, easy thing to show. You know what I can do? What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another web browser window. And we're just going to go to fergusonlibrary.org. We'll just do Ferguson library. So we'll have a second one that goes to the Ferguson library. I was hoping to grab the PDF. I don't know why it's not seeing that in the windows. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to properties and we're going to grab, we're going to grab Firefox, the Ferguson library there. So I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to then resize this to fit the same size as the other one. So now you can see I have my two windows side by side. If I wanted to, I can stretch this. It looks silly, but it is a way to kind of do that there. I could have done like an overlay to kind of make things look a little bit better on either side, but here I'm stretching them. And so this is like really good to use if you're doing like a comparison, you're doing a recording, you're showing comparison from one thing to another. I'm able to go in and kind of pull those into here. And then I can go in and add in my audio and my audio sources. I can add in any text or anything I want to do in here. So I can build the scene here like I built the other ones. I'm just going to rename this here as second web browser, just so I know the difference between them. There we go. So yeah, so that's a way that, and I'm going to ignore this. I don't know why that came up. This is the curse of showing the display rather than just a window, is that anything that shows up on my computer, all my notifications, you see. So yeah, so I was able, and so now what happens is I can then change between my two different scenes. And so this is the thing I wanted to do, is I wanted to create a scene and then we can kind of change between them, one to the other, showing you, so as you're recording. And so what you want to do as you're planning the record on your computer, is you want to think about all the different scenarios about what you want to show. It might be just a very simple demonstration like what I'm doing here, where you're just going to show one screen and you're going to do everything right in there. But if you want to get creative and show things in a more dynamic fashion, you can set up different scenes and kind of change between them there. And one of the nice things about doing it as recording versus doing it as a live stream is that your changes between those different scenes doesn't have to be as seamless as it is when you're live streaming, because you can stop the recording and then you can go change the scene, set things up as you need to do, and then record what you need to do. So the final thing I just kind of want to show on here in OBS is there's a couple things. We're going to take a quick look into the settings and some of the different kind of settings that you can use to kind of improve how you're working in OBS. So I'm going to click the settings over here on the right. And what I really want to kind of focus on at this point here is I want to focus on hotkeys. So what hotkeys are a way that you can create keyboard shortcuts. And if you've taken any other classes with me, you know how much I love keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts are just a really great way for you to get access to a feature or a tool really quickly without always having to find where you're going to click it or use it with the mouse there. And so OBS has a really powerful way of creating keyboard shortcuts for literally any action that you want to do in OBS. And the nice thing about doing this here, especially when you're like recording, or in my case, live streaming, if I wanted to change scenes from one to the other, it's very obvious if I go over and I move my mouse over what I'm recording and I click. You're seeing me kind of sometimes moving over to another window and clicking and doing things. It's obvious that I'm doing that there. But if you want to have kind of a more seamless kind of interaction, you can build keyboard shortcuts that allow me to do things like change over to my face cam here over my demo without me having to click and find where that tool is. I have a shortcut set up to be able to do this transition from my face cam to my demo screen on here. And it allows me, because I know where that keyboard shortcut is, it's familiar, I have muscle memory to do that there, I can easily switch between them as the situation warrants. So we can go down and you notice we have a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts based. And so I have some set for things like starting recording and stopping recording. And if I use the same keyboard shortcut for different actions, it will do those multiple actions when I do that keyboard shortcut. So like, for example, I have it set up here that I can start streaming and start recording at the same time. Actually, start streaming. Actually, I use the left bracket, and then start recording. I use the right bracket. So what I would typically do is I would do like Control Shift left right and start them both at the same time. Okay, so sorry about that. I just realized I think I accidentally stopped streaming when I was entering my keyboard shortcuts because there was a keyboard shortcut in there. Sorry about that. Let me go over kind of what I may have missed. There's a question in the chat about a lot of the remote jobs want to have a second monitor for work. Would the side-by-side feature be another option to purchasing a second monitor? Not here in OBS. Now you can if you're using Windows 10, it's kind of going a little bit off topic, but if in Windows 10 does have a Windows side-by-side capability that it's not as convenient. So like, for example, I can take this and put this over here, and then I can put my browser over there. And so they're acting, you can see that they're working side by side. And I could then do all my stuff over here, but you can see it kind of still constrains the space that I have on my screen from one to the other. I do have multiple monitors. I actually have 3 monitors set up on my computer here. And it does give me a lot more space to be able to kind of see so that things aren't overlapping and I don't feel as squeezed in to the space of doing everything on one screen. So the side-by-side feature that I was talking about here was if you're doing a recording where you're showing things and you want to compare from one to the other side by side, you can. I don't know why this ended up messing up like this. This is weird. You know why? Because I squished the screen. There we go. Let's make that fit there. There we go. So yeah, just it's like, I mean, the side-by-side feature in like Windows 10 is something that it can somewhat help with if you don't have another monitor, but having a second monitor, once you start using that there, you do find that there is a kind of a drastic difference between one and the other. I hope that answers your question on that there. Let me go back to my hotkeys and make sure I don't change them this time and turn off my streaming. Sorry about that. That was kind of a pause. I looked up and realized that it was sitting there spinning and it was not getting any data. So yeah, so you can set up hotkeys for almost any actions in in OBS, and as you create scenes, so you notice over here I've created my recording and my side-by-side, is it will also create entries to be able to put in hotkeys for those different scenes and for each of the different sources. And so for each of the different sources, you can see I can either so if we go back to my recording scene that I did, here's my display capture. And so I can put a shortcut to either show it or hide it. Or remember the blocking overlay that I made. I can actually go in and, you know what, let's do Control-Shift-D. And then we'll do Control-Shift-D to hide it there. And so what this will allow me to do is if I go to here, and so right now I don't have that blocking overlay that I made before. If I do Control-Shift-D, now it shows up. Hit it again and hide it. So instead of me going and actually moving my mouse and clicking down here to show or hide the blocking overlay, it's just a simple matter of using my keyboard shortcut. And it ends up being a little bit more natural. It allows me to keep my mouse moving in a more natural fashion. I didn't have to go and do a different thing. So the keyboard shortcuts allow you to do changes between scenes, to hide or show different sources, to mute your microphone, to unmute your microphone. Either way, the keyboard shortcuts allow you, just kind of give you just kind of a nice way to kind of access some of these actions here without trying to hunt or find them there, which just allows you to give a little bit more freedom and flow to as you're doing your recording, to kind of grab or so you're not getting distracted from your recording by having to find to interact with your scenes and your setups on there and such. You can also use it to switch to scenes. So you can set up a keyboard shortcut to switch to recording. And then here, you can see I have my side-by-side over here. And then I only have a couple different sources in there. I can switch that there. And so I could do Control-Shift. Yeah, actually, let's do Control-Shift-1 for this one and say Control-Shift-2. And I could use my numbers right across the top to count the number of scenes that I have. So now here I am in my there. I change over to my side-by-side. Now I'm going to change back over to my other one there, just by hitting Control-Shift-1 or Control-Shift-2. And so I could have done that all by going over here and clicking, but it's also right there on my keyboard. And so it's something easy that I can do that doesn't give me distracting mouse movements or distract my attention as much as trying to find where I'm going to click with the mouse. So that's just the advantage of keyboard shortcuts. Down at the bottom, we have our different the audio things, so mute or unmute are available on there too. So keyboard shortcuts are just a really great way of kind of putting together just kind of controls on how you access and work with the different scenes and the different sources that you're working with OBS to kind of make your recording steps easier. So that's about all that I have to cover with OBS right now. This is a good time if you have any questions about OBS itself. But the last thing I kind of really wanted to talk about for the class is what you can do with the video once you've made it. So OBS, when you're done recording, spits out actually a pretty decent video file. Actually, it's a good video file. I'm not going to say pretty decent. It's a good, solid video file. That if you did everything that you wanted to find, if you're recording, you went through and there weren't any errors or anything. I'm just finding my notes to kind of make sure I cover up. Oh, I forgot there's a set of settings I need to look at. Let me go back and do that before I can talk about this here. So the last thing, kind of the settings that we want to look at here, is when you're doing recording is you want to look at these output settings. So over here on the left, there's output. And so there's two different outputs that OBS can do. One of them is streaming, which is broadcasting out to different streaming platforms, which if you're interested about that there is a class that I did back in August that is here on the Ferguson Library YouTube channel that covers a lot of the same stuff that I just did in this class here, but we'll also talk a bit more about streaming. Then there's also the recording section down here, and this is what we're of interest in the class. And so with here, you're able to choose where the file gets saved as it's recording. And then you're able to, and then it'll automatically make a file name on there. And actually, let me see if I can show you what that recording is. So yeah, so right over here, this is the recording that I'm making actually right now. Is this file right here. I think I may have actually ended my file, but Yeah. But yeah, this is the file that it's making right now. And so you can see it kind of gives it dates it on there and gives it this .mp4 file extension. This is the one that I just created when I accidentally ended my recording by playing around with keyboard shortcuts that I shouldn't have played around with. So it automatically kind of saves that file name. And then you have options here like the recording quality. Now, if you aren't streaming, if you aren't doing live streaming and you're just recording, I recommend making this here as high quality as file. So you can see like lossless quality. Depends on how much hard drive space you have. If you don't have a lot of hard drive space, maybe go with like indistinguishable quality, large file size. Because if you're going to do any sort of editing or any other sort of work with the file, you want to always start off with as high a quality as possible. Because the more work that you do on a video file, kind of the lower the quality will get every single time that you save that file. So you kind of want to start as high quality as possible, and then move back. And then you can choose the file format, and this is going to depend on where you're going to be sharing the video with, or how you're going to be sharing the video. They may have certain requirements. My recommendation, if you're uncertain, just stay with MP4. MP4 is a great standard, almost universal file format for videos. YouTube takes it, Vimeo takes it. It works on Apple's, it works on Windows. It's standard one. If you're not certain what all these different things are, just stay with MP4. So those are just the settings. You choose where you're able to save the file, you save the quality, and again, choose as high a quality as you can, and then the file format there. You don't really have to worry about any of the other settings, at least at the start when you're kind of working with things. As you get more experience and you start doing more things and you get and you want to get more elaborate, you can kind of go in and you can change like to more advanced settings and kind of change some things on there. But don't play around with that if you don't really know what it is. OBS out of the box, when you just install it and you choose the recording options during the install, gives you a really good setup right at the start. So let me get back to what I was talking before about what you need to, what you can do with the file afterwards. As I mentioned, you get a good video file that's ready to be uploaded to YouTube or shared with your colleagues, put into like whatever workspace that you want to do. But you can also edit the file. And this is where some of the things when you come in, if you took my video editing class last night, this is some of the stuff that I kind of talked about there too, is that you can bring these videos into a video editor and edit there. So when you're doing like your recording and you're doing your demonstration on your computer and you say you mess up, the best thing to do is just kind of stop, take a pause, and then go back and kind of repeat up to the section that you did before. You maybe don't have to repeat the whole thing, but repeat and redo that part there. You can do different takes. It's one of the advantages of doing a recording rather than doing something live. I mean, you've seen me do some of these different gaffes that I've done tonight because I'm doing this live. If I was doing this as a recording, a lot of those would get edited out. If I took this recording of what I would do tonight, I would take out a lot of these kind of mistakes, so it would be kind of a more smoother watching experience, where it also shows me off as being more of an expert than I am showing as I'm live. And so when you're recording and you make mistakes, just do those different takes. And then in a video editor, and there are a variety of different free video editors out there. You can use Windows Movie Maker. You can use iMovie on your Mac. I did my class last night in Lightworks, which is a free video editor out there. There are other good video editors out there. You can then go in and edit and piece together your video. You can also set up different scenes. So like if you know you're going to do one thing in one program, you can set up OBS to record that program. So instead of doing display where you might get notifications popping up, do window. So you're just capturing that window. Record what you're doing in there, record your voiceover on that, and then stop recording, and it'll just save. It'll save it as a separate. It'll have a file there that'll be that recording. Then go set up the other, then go to a second program. So like if I was doing this, if I was doing something in Word, then I wanted to go to Excel, I would then open up Excel, and then I would start my setup OBS to record Excel, do all my recording there and such. And then in the end, I have two different video files, which I can then put into my video editor and put together, edit together as I want to do it. And then what happens is at that point, then you can kind of get a finished file that you can then do whatever that you want to do with. So think about the video when you're planning to record your computer for record, whether you're doing video tutorials, whether you're doing video lectures for classes, whether you're recording a demonstration, like you're showing somebody, you're doing something to show somebody a new technology or how to do something similar like what I'm doing here. Think about like the different steps that you want to do. Write out an outline that kind of goes through the different steps and the different pieces that you need to record, and figure out what you can record like all together, so that's something that you're working on in one take. Or think about where you're doing things in different pieces that you can then assemble on later on. So planning is an important part of that there. Write up a script, so that's something that you're reading off of. The nice thing about doing like a recording versus doing, say, something live is that you can read a script, and if you make a mistake, you can just kind of restart and reread and get caught up to where you're at there and such. And then you can kind of piece together those different takes and kind of get the best pieces of it, or you can just do the whole thing again in one take. So yeah, so if you did several takes, you can shoot in different various segments. But yeah, but OBS does give you kind of a ready to watch recording right there at the end. So that is kind of what I have to cover for topics for this class here. If you are interested in kind of continuing, OBS is free to download and kind of play around with. Let me move back to my demo screen here and open up my handout and just kind of show you here at the last page of the handout. I do have some information here about further reference and kind of learning that you can kind of do. So OBS has a really good kind of support site at their project wiki here. So when if you're confused about what different settings are, or how to do like a certain skill or whatever, or how to do a certain setup, or what different scenes or what the different sources are, they have that all defined right here at the OBS project wiki. So this is just a really good progress or site resource for anything to do with OBS. It's written by the developers and other people who are using it there. It's a really valuable resource. In my preparations for this class today, I did find, and I have this link on here and such, this is actually going out to a university, kind of set this up for their professors on how to use OBS to record your lectures. It covers a lot of what I've talked about through this class. It's just a text PDF that'll go through a lot of kind of what I've talked about in this class. So it's just a really good reference resource, a reminder of kind of the different ways. So if you're interested in what I've covered in this class here, but you go a couple days, so you get to like Saturday or Sunday and you haven't done anything yet and you want to sit down and get things set up, this ends up being kind of a good reference to kind of go through and do that kind of setup, and talks about the different pieces that I've talked about there. And then finally, the Ferguson library offers access to Udemy, UDMY, which is an online learning site. There isn't anything in Udemy specifically about OBS or about like recording, but they do have a few good courses on things like voiceovers. So voiceover is like basically speaking over the video as you're acting on there and such. So if you want to learn how to do better voiceover and narration of the videos that you're creating, there are several courses. I highlighted one here: voiceover training, record and edit voiceovers like a pro. It's a course. I think it's like 5 or 6 hour course on kind of going through and practicing. I don't know how much they cover in 5 to 6 hours, but how to kind of do voiceovers better. So yeah, so these are just kind of continuous resource. I found things like doing a search for like OBS on YouTube, OBS tutorials on YouTube, which actually probably will now find this this video in the future also, but doing like a search for OBS tutorials on YouTube also has a lot of really valuable kind of resources that will show you how to do a lot of specific things. YouTube's another really great free learning resource out there. There's a lot of people out there who just go and just create really great tutorial videos on how to do almost anything. You need to fix a doorknob on your door in your house. Somebody's made a video talking about step-by-step how to do that there. It's fantastic. The internet may have certain issues, but there's other parts where the internet is a really great place. So I want to thank anybody who joined me. This is a good time. I'm going to be here I have another 10 minutes. If you have any questions specifically about OBS and video recording on there, I can answer those. If you've enjoyed this class and want to give me some feedback, I do have a survey set up here. This is also linked on the fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes webpage under the record your computer class. But this here, projectoutcome.org/responses/53272 will take you to the feedback survey for this class, and I would appreciate it if you did just kind of let me know what you think. If you thought it was horrible, that's good, because I can use that to build a better class next time. If it's good, I'll appreciate that as well too. But yeah, so let me know if you have any questions in either of the chats, and if I don't get any questions in like the next couple of minutes, I'll call it a night. Thank you very much, and hope you have a good evening and a good happy Halloween. Stay safe, everybody. Hopefully soon we'll be able to start doing all of this back in the library again, but we want to make sure that everybody stays safe and secure in these times. All right, so I'm not really seeing any questions right now. If you do have any questions, you're free to contact me at the Ferguson Library. I'm just F Skornia, so let me actually, if I go back to here, you can kind of see my name. So it's my first initial and my last name at fergusonlibrary.org. If you have any questions about any of this here, or you want to have, we can do like one-on-one training through Zoom. So if you have any questions about that, definitely get in touch with me, and I would love to help you out kind of setting up anything that you want to do, whether it's like video editing like the class I did last night, or anything to do with like live streaming or recording here. So thank you once again for everybody who attended. Stay safe, and I bid you a good night.